Hello, my name is Joseph Wise, and this is my presentation on police deception during interrogations, ethics, leadership, and the pursuit of truth. Police officers sometimes face tough choices when the law and ethics don't always match. So, for example, they may use deception during interrogations. In this presentation, I will look at police deception from the perspectives of law, research, ethical theory, leadership, and my Christian faith. To start, it helps to understand what police deception means. Police deception takes different forms. Investigators might pretend they have evidence, claim an accomplice confessed, misstate facts, or use techniques to downplay the seriousness of a situation. These methods are often used to get information or a confession, but research questions how reliable they are. This leads to my main question of this presentation. If something is allowed by law, is it also ethically right? To answer this, we first need to look at the legal background. One of the most well-known cases about police deception is the 1969 Supreme Court case Frazier versus Cupp. In this case, police told Frazier falsely that his cousin had confessed. After Frazier heard this, he made statements that incriminated himself and later claimed his confession was not voluntary. The Supreme Court considered the use of deception, but decided it wasn't enough on its own to make to make the confession voluntary. So instead, the court looked at all the circumstances together. This case matters because it highlights the main point of my presentation. Just because a deceptive technique is allowed by law doesn't mean it's always ethically right. I think to judge deception from an ethical point of view, we also need to understand why investigators might decide to use it in the first place. Investigators sometimes use deception for valid reasons, like testing a suspect's story, finding evidence, locating a victim, uh, getting an admission, or stopping further harm. Sometimes this approach can help solve serious crimes. However, just having a good reason doesn't always mean the method is acceptable. This issue is important when deception leads to a false confession. Main worry with using deceptive interrogation techniques is that they can lead to false confessions. Might seem unlikely that an innocent person can admit to something they didn't do, but research shows that it does happen. In a 2025 scientific review, Kaysen and his colleagues found that factors like false evidence, aggressive questioning, being young, uh, personal vulnerabilities can all make false confessions more likely. The effects of this go beyond interrogation itself. Innocent people might be prosecuted or convicted, and the real offender could go free. Ethically, this makes us ask not just if deception is effective, but if the risks it creates are acceptable. Kantian ethics can help answer this, since it looks at moral duty instead of just the results. Kantian ethics is about following moral duties instead of focusing on the outcomes. It values honesty and respecting people, not just using them to achieve a goal. In this context, investigators should seek the truth, but trying to get it creates an ethical problem. Consequentialism, on the other hand, approaches this issue differently. Consequentialism looks at actions based on the results. For example, if using deception helps find a victim by getting a guilty person to talk, some might see that as justified. However, if the same approach makes an innocent person confess, the outcome is much worse. Because of this, investigators need to weigh both the possible benefits and the risks. And on the other hand, virtue ethics focuses more on the investigator's character than on the results of their actions. Virtue ethics focuses on the kind of person we aim to become. In law enforcement, this means showing integrity, honesty, courage, fairness, self-control, and practical wisdom. Practical wisdom matters because just because a tactic is available doesn't mean it fits every situation. Officers also need to realize that the same approach can affect people in different ways. Interrogation techniques can affect people in different ways. Things like age, cognitive challenges, language barriers, cultural backgrounds. Those shape how someone understands and answers questions. Ethical policing is not about making assumptions based on these differences. It's about noticing each person's unique needs and adjusting our approach when needed. Law enforcement leaders are responsible for making sure officers are ready to make those decisions. Ethical leadership means taking action before problems happen, not just reacting after the fact. Agencies can lower risks by recording interrogations, using proven interview techniques, protecting suspects, and making sure supervisors review cases properly. Leaders should focus on getting these facts right, not just getting confessions. And for me, this responsibility is also tied to my faith and the idea of serving others. My Christian faith teaches me to value truth, justice, humility, and service. Ephesians 4, verse 25, highlights the importance of being truthful. Micah 6:8 encourages us to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly. Because of these beliefs, I find it hard to justify intentional deception. I also think authority should be used carefully and always with respect for everyone's dignity. These values guide my decisions about what is right and wrong. I don't think all police deception should be banned, but it needs to be limited when there's a real risk of coercion, false confessions, or harm to vulnerable people. Just because something's legal doesn't mean it's always ethical. Police deception should be rare, not routine. Because the main goal is to find truth, not just get a confession. We should also be open to rethinking old practices. Ethical leaders are open to changing their methods when research shows there are better options. In law enforcement, this means shifting away from focusing only on confessions and instead using evidence-based information gathering techniques that value accuracy and confirmation. Taking this approach does not make law enforcement weaker. In fact, it leads to stronger investigations and helps maintain public trust. Ethical policing is not just about what officers are allowed to do, but how they use their authority in the right way.